It was a much better jobs report than people expected. Your assessment, please.
Well, look, it was much better. And when you do the accounting across the board, you got to look under the hood. Actually, it was a 303,000 increase in non-farm payroll jobs. If you go through this, you start with your base case unadjusted, 128,000. But the prior 2 months were revised up 95,000. So that gets you to 223. Adjust for the GM, that's 60,000. Add that back and add the census takers back. You're at 303,000. It's a remarkable number. And I want to say it kind of confirms, you and I have spoken about this in recent months, the huge strength in the household survey, which had another big month, 241,000. That often is a leading indicator for the payroll survey. That's what we're seeing. The labor markets and the economy fundamentally are a lot stronger than people think. Here's another one for you that I want to get out. 325,000 increase in the labor force. 325,000. Now that's been in a steady uptrend, and it tells us you got a lot of people coming out of the woodwork. They're returning back to the labor force, probably attracted by good wages. You know, the non-supervisory production wage increase, 12 months, 3.5%. That's better than their managers, who are running about 3%. So these numbers are across the board, virtually a blowout number, I think, quite unexpected. Don't write off the economy just yet. I'll tell you, it's got a lot of fundamental strength.
Really, really decent, Larry, and most people would agree with you. We get the ISM manufacturing in around about 6 minutes, so maybe you and I can talk about that in just a moment. Let's talk about trade. Reports of a call happening today between US and Chinese trade negotiators. Larry, could you tell us a little bit more about what you'll be discussing on that call?
Look at our lead negotiators, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, Trade Ambassador Lighthizer, at this point, they may be talking as you and I are talking. In any event, they're talking with Vice Premier Liu of China. The trade talks are going very well. If you look carefully at the comments coming out of the official organs, the Finance Ministry, the Foreign Ministry, the Commerce Ministry in China, they're all very upbeat, very positive. They're very productive talks. You know, I can't go into deep details, obviously, but I can say this. The chapter on agriculture is virtually completed. That's not only the $40 to $50 billion increase in agriculture purchases, but also market openings, lower non-tariff barriers. Very, very important. The financial services chapter is virtually completed. That'll provide 100% ownership for American banks, security firms, insurance firms operating in China. The currency chapter is virtually completed. That will provide for currency stability with obviously safeguards against manipulation. The intellectual property chapter, we've come a long way on that. I don't think it's been completed. It's still under discussion, but we've made very good progress. The deal is not completed. The deal is not done. There are issues to go on enforcement. That's going to be very, very important. There will be issues on forced technology transfer. Very, very important. Those may slip into phase 2. But I will tell you, we've come a long way. President Trump himself has indicated a desire to complete this phase 1 deal. President Xi has indicated likewise. As you know from your own reporting, there's now a new search for a new venue where the two leaders can meet because the Chilean thing, the APEC thing, fell through in Santiago. So we'll see. But again, it is not completed. I'll be perfectly honest about that. But enormous progress, very constructive talks, which are continuing today.
Larry, the mood music is much better over the last 2 months. No one would deny that. Just walk me through the specifics, though. What is holding us back in phase 1? What's left to be agreed? What's holding you back?
I can't be too specific, as you might imagine. I'm going to let our brilliant negotiators do their brilliant negotiating. But as I said before, I went through the different chapters. Agriculture chapter looks good. Financial services looks good. Currency looks good. Intellectual property theft, much improved. Okay, still much more work to do on forced tech transfer. enforcement is very, very important, very, very important, and that's where they'll be working on. So I don't want to go any further below that surface. All I'll say is we've come further than we were last May, when we thought we, had 90% of the deal. President Trump himself, I believe, yesterday suggested that Phase 1 would be perhaps 60% of what we hope ultimately to get done. But the outlook for Phase 1 is very positive right now, and you can see it. Again, I encourage people. I know there's a lot of reporting that goes on, picking up snippets here and there. I myself just like to look at the official statements from the key Chinese ministries. Those statements are very positive, Jonathan.
The threat of December tariff hikes still on the table, Larry?
Well, they're still on the table until this Phase 1 deal is completed, or worst case, not completed. I don't want to speculate. That's up to President Trump how he's going to handle that. But the president has hinted that depending on the process of Phase 1, he may be willing, I say may be willing, to take a look at those tariffs. As you know, we suspended some other tariffs as a goodwill gesture and a negotiating gesture. I think that's all to the good. So I don't want to speculate on how it'll work in December 15th or later. That's all part of these negotiations that are ongoing.
I don't want to speculate either. I just want to understand what the concessions are that the U.S. administration want from the Chinese for that December tariff hike to go away. What are the specifics?
Well, again, I can't repeat the laundry list. As I say, the chapters I mentioned before are all going very, very well.
They're all going very well, but there must be something specific, Larry, that they haven't followed through on to make the threat of December tariff hikes go away. What is it?
I can't talk that way. I can't go into that kind of depth. After today's discussions between Mnuchin and Lighthizer and the Vice Premier, perhaps the Secretary or the Ambassador may wish to reveal that or not. It's not my role to do that. Remember, of course, you have these teleconference meetings. They go on for quite some time. The deputies have been meeting. But, of course, all of our trade group, the so-called Principals Trade Group, of which I'm a member, we will report to President Trump, and President Trump's going to make those final decisions.
The president makes the final call. We expect he always will. We've reported this week that some of the thornier issues to be dealt with in, say, Phase 2, the Chinese just won't budge on, Larry. Are you confident they will, and what gives you that confidence?
I don't want to speculate on that, Jonathan, to be honest, because the way I look at it, the fact that we're in this Phase 1 is itself a big breakthrough. And to some extent, that was a concession by President Trump. Rather than go for the entire, what you might say, a grand slam home run, better to look at it in segments, in phases. That was a change in the president's thinking a couple of weeks ago. It was recommended to him by the Trade Principals Group, and it came from successful negotiations when the Chinese were here a couple weeks ago. My view on these things is not to try to predict long term. My view is let's stay right here and now and look at what's in front of us on the Phase 1 agenda, which I have done my best to outline to you.
Yeah.
I don't want to speculate on the long run. I think, look, negotiations, if you've ever been involved with them, good things beget other good things, or vice versa. Bad things beget other bad things. The way I see it, and I'm doing my best to report this to you without divulging too much, but as the mood music is good, the negotiations are going well. You see, here's a thought. Let me give you one additional thought.
Okay.
The official statements from China, I know I mentioned this a second ago. Let me repeat this. In the past, going back, I've been here almost 2 years doing this nonstop. Many times we had a more optimistic view, but then we would get statements and commentaries from the officials in the key Chinese ministries that suggested not so much optimism. This time around, regarding Phase 1, please note how optimistic the Commerce Ministry, the Foreign Ministry, the Finance Ministry, and their leaders, how optimistic, how positive and constructive they have been. I use that as a leading indicator, Jonathan. So I don't want to get ahead of this story. I don't want to predict. All I'm saying is the Phase 1 talks, which are here right before us and which represented a change in the entire framework of negotiations, those talks are not complete, but they are going well.
Well, let's talk about leading indicators. The ISM just out, 48.3, downside surprise, sub 50. Pretty much every industry, 12 out of 18 reporting a contraction in October. Larry, can you see how this tension between the United States and China is starting to bleed into the manufacturing segment of the U.S. economy?
Well, look, I think there have been impacts. My own view is I think you know that the impact on the U.S. economy has been minimal. The impact on the Chinese economy has been much, much greater for a variety of reasons, perhaps 4 times as much. Look, on the manufacturing numbers, the market ISM was a better number than this ISM. Today's jobs report, by the way, when you adjust for GM, actually showed a 24,000 increase in manufacturing jobs. That's the best number we've had in quite a while. One of our problems, though, Jonathan, is the European recession. We export a huge volume of manufacturing-related sales to Europe. And Europe, as you know, is virtually in a recession. It's completely flat. That has hurt us a lot. So that, and of course, as we've discussed, the headwinds from severe monetary tightening, particularly last year, I think have hurt that sector. Now, monetary policy, fortunately, has finally turned around. It's moving in the right direction. The target rate has come down to, 1.5, 3/4. The yield curve is normalizing. The balance sheet and the monetary base are expanding. So those are pluses. So we've gone from extreme tightness to a somewhat more accommodative position. That's good. That's going to help manufacturing. It's going to help everything. The European story is a drag on manufacturing. But my hope here, and again, these jobs numbers, it's 303,000 blowout jobs number today. I think our economy is stronger under the surface than folks think.
Yep.
I think business investment is going to be on the way back. I think on trade, where there is uncertainty, I grant your point, China looks better. USMCA still looks good. The reports from Capitol Hill are very good on USMCA. Canada and Mexico obviously are gigantic markets for our manufacturing, exports, and so forth. So that's going to be very helpful as well. So let's see. Let's play this thing, day at a time, month at a time, and so forth.
Larry, most people would say that the European economy is slowing down because of what has happened in China, and what has happened in China is because of the tension between the United States and the Chinese. But you and I could go back and forth on that, I'm sure, for a long, long time. Do you want to deal with a little bit of business with you? Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot announcing a merger this week. Peugeot is 12% owned by Dongfeng, a Chinese motor corporation. I'm just wondering, has the United States and your administration taken a look at that deal?
Not yet. I can report not yet. We will obviously look at it very, very carefully, but not yet.
What's the president said?
President has not commented on that deal.
Do you think, Larry, it's worth having a look because of the sensitivity around Chinese-owned companies? This would be one of the big Detroit car companies in the United States, part-owned essentially by a Chinese motor corporation because of its ownership of Peugeot.
We'll take a careful look at it. Look, we want to do business around the world, providing that it's to our benefit, the United States benefit. I mean, I presume the other country too, but President Trump is here to defend the American economy and the American workforce. So we're not afraid of doing business with international companies, Lord knows. With respect to the Chinese story, we obviously are alert and on guard. We have to make sure that whatever China business developments occur do not occur to the detriment of not only our economy, but our own national security. Hence, the idea of having sensitivities. As you know, we have export controls. We have an entity list. And now this automobile deal probably won't be part of that entity list. I don't think that would qualify, but I don't want to speculate. That's a Commerce Department decision. Secretary Ross himself will be looking at that, so I don't want to go too far. So I'm just saying we will welcome a good deal. We hope it gets more production in the United States, more factories and workers and employment in the U.S., and with respect to the Chinese angle, we will take a very careful look at it.
Hey, Larry, it's always great to catch up with you. Appreciate your time today. I know you've got a busy one over at the White House with the trade talks ongoing with the Chinese. Your National Economic Council Director there, Larry Kudlow.